Have you ever wondered why the person who lives in your mind rarely understands the power they hold there? It is strange, isn't it? A woman can be silent, composed, even distant on the outside, and yet her entire inner world can be orbiting around one man. Not because she is weak, but because the heart remembers what the mind tries to let go. But here is the paradox. The more she thinks about him, the more he begins to feel something shifting in his own life. Energy does not disappear, it echoes, it returns, it reveals. And if you stay with me, you will understand exactly why these thoughts affect him so deeply. And more importantly, you will realize that you are a woman of immense inner power, a queen who must remember her throne, not chase someone who doesn't recognize it. Stay with me, because what you are about to hear may change the way you love, the way you wait, and the way you value yourself forever. 1. The energy of a woman's thoughts creates invisible movement. There is something mysterious about the way a woman thinks, not the loud thoughts she tells her friends, not the polite ones she expresses with a soft smile, but the quiet ones, the ones she whispers only to her pillow at night, the ones she hides behind her eyes when someone asks, "Are you okay?" Those thoughts carry a force she rarely acknowledges. Because when a woman thinks deeply about a man, she isn't just remembering moments. She's pouring her energy, her emotion, her attention into a space that begins to live between two people. Most try to describe this in simple terms, but it is not simple. It is not logical. It is not the language of the mind. It is the language of the heart. And the heart speaks softly, but its messages travel far. When a woman's thoughts settle on a man, they do not stay in her alone. They ripple outward, like a stone dropped into still water. She thinks she is simply missing him, or wondering about him, or imagining what could be. But what she is truly doing is letting her energy move toward a person who may not even understand why his world feels different today. That is the strange part. Her thoughts move ahead of her actions. Her emotions move ahead of her words, and even if she says nothing, something begins to shift. Have you ever noticed that some people suddenly think about you just as you think about them, or they call you just as you start missing them, or you dream of someone right before they reach out? This is not coincidence. It is connection. It is resonance. It is the silent exchange that happens when one heart sends energy and another heart feels the echo. A woman may not realize that she is sending anything at all, but her thoughts are not empty. Her longing is not hollow. Her attention is not passive. It is movement, it is vibration, it is invisible, but it is real. And the man she thinks about begins to feel a shift. Even if he cannot explain it, he may feel restless. He may feel drawn to memories. He may feel a nameless tug at his spirit. He may feel the need to reach out without knowing why. Because when a woman focuses her inner world on someone outside herself, that energy begins to travel, not because she forces it, but because she feels it. And energy always moves, with or without permission. A woman's thoughts create invisible movement, movement that traces its way toward the one she holds within. And if he is spiritually awake, he senses it like a change in the weather. If he is emotionally aware, he feels it like a soft pull on his heart. If he is unguarded, he notices her presence in his silence, in his dreams, in the spaces he cannot explain. This is where the mystery deepens, because once that energy begins moving toward him, something else begins to unfold, something subtle yet impossible to ignore. And that leads us into what happens next, because energy that travels eventually lands. 2. Why emotional focus becomes a silent signal to him. When a woman gives a man her emotional focus, she may believe she is simply thinking, but she is actually sending him a message without speaking a single word. This message is not loud. It does not arrive like a knock on his door. It arrives quietly, like a warmth he cannot trace, a thought he cannot dismiss, a feeling he cannot place. You see, emotional focus functions like a signal. Not one you consciously transmit, but one the heart releases on its own. The heart is honest, even when the mind tries to hide, and honesty travels farther than intention. When she thinks of him, he feels a shift. Maybe he becomes more aware of her presence in his memories. Maybe he starts checking her social media for no reason. Maybe he begins to wonder why he hasn't reached out. Maybe he becomes curious about what she is doing now. He may shrug it off. He may tell himself it's nothing. But it is something. Because nothing does not move the heart. Only energy does. When her emotional focus intensifies, his internal world begins to rearrange in ways he cannot logically explain. He may feel drawn closer, as though something within him is being nudged gently forward. He may feel uneasy, as though something inside him needs attention. A man rarely understands these signals immediately, not because he is dull, but because his emotional language usually develops later than hers. Women feel first, men realize later, and somewhere between her feeling and his realization lies an invisible communication that neither can fully articulate. This silent signal creates a question inside him. Why am I thinking about her today? Why can't I shake this feeling? Why does it seem like she's nearby, even though she's not here? He may not know the answer, but the signal has already been received. Emotional focus is powerful because it carries truth, not the truth of words, but the truth of vibration. And vibration is the only language the heart cannot ignore. A woman might imagine that she is being quiet, that no one knows what she feels, but silence is deceptive. Her heart speaks even when her mouth doesn't. Her emotions travel even when she stays still. Her focus sends a message even when she tries to hide it. And this message does not shout, it whispers. And those whispers find their way into the deepest places of him. This is why some men return long after a woman has moved on. They are responding to signals she once sent but no longer sends. The silence becomes louder than her longing ever was. Because once a signal is received, it changes the receiver. But what happens when this silent signal becomes more than just a presence? When it becomes something he feels, even if he does not want to feel it? That is where the next truth begins. Because a heart that hears a whisper cannot pretend it heard nothing. 3. When her heart speaks louder than her words, a woman may speak softly or she may say nothing at all, but her heart speaks in ways that cannot be muted. Her heart speaks in the way she remembers, even when she tries to forget. Her heart speaks in the way she prays for him, even when she feels hurt. Her heart speaks in the way she still hopes, even when she knows she shouldn't. Her heart speaks in the way she imagines what peace would look like if things were different. The heart has a voice that does not require the mouth. And this voice is louder than words, because it carries truth. Words can be polite. Words can be restrained. Words can be edited to avoid embarrassment or discomfort. But the heart speaks with rawness. It speaks with sincerity. It speaks with a purity that does not know how to lie. When a woman's heart speaks about a man, he feels something shifting. Whether he understands it or not, he may not interpret it correctly, but he feels it. He feels her longing in the unexpected silence of his day. He feels her memory in the moments he believes he has moved on. He feels her energy when something inside him stirs without warning. He senses her, not as a thought, but as a presence. This presence may arrive gently, like a soft breeze brushing past him when he is alone, or it may arrive abruptly, like a sudden wave that reminds him of what he once had and did not value. Her heart speaks to him in the pauses between his distractions, in the spaces between his responsibilities, in the quiet moments he does not share with anyone. Even if he tries to ignore it, the heart does not forget what it has received. This is why a man can walk away, but still feel connected, why he can be with someone else but still feel something missing, why he can convince his mind that he is done while his heart continues to echo with the sound of hers, because her heart's voice carries more weight than any message she could have spoken aloud. It is not manipulation, it is not desperation, it is not weakness. It is simply connection, the kind that forms quietly, honestly, unintentionally. But here lies the paradox. The more loudly her heart speaks, the more clearly he begins to hear himself. Her feelings awaken his truth. Her emotional honesty forces him to confront what his own heart has buried. And once his heart starts responding, everything begins to change. But something deeper is coming. A shift she never expects, a moment she never predicts. Because when her heart speaks louder than her words, something inside him begins to answer. 4. His instinctive pull toward her inner presence. There is a moment in every man's life when he begins to feel something he cannot explain, something gentle, something soft, something almost fragile, yet powerful enough to interrupt his thoughts and change the direction of his day. This is the moment when he begins to sense a woman's inner presence, long before she speaks, long before she calls, long before she reappears. It is not a presence of the body, it is a presence of the soul. A man may believe he is untouched by energy, unaffected by emotion, unmoved by the invisible, but his spirit knows better, his heart knows better, his instincts know better, and instincts have a way of revealing truth before the mind is ready to accept it. When a woman thinks deeply about a man, when she carries him in her chest like a quiet ache, when she holds onto memories of him as if they were pieces of home, she creates a presence around him that he begins to recognize even without seeing her. He feels it in the pauses between his responsibilities. He feels it when he wakes up before the sun. He feels it in the way his mood FTS for no reason. He feels it in the questions he didn't plan to ask himself. Sometimes he senses her when he is laughing with friends. Sometimes he senses her when he is sitting alone in the late night silence. Sometimes he senses her when he is lying beside someone else who does not touch his soul the way she once did. Her presence becomes a quiet reminder that something in his life is unresolved, unfinished, undigested, and this awareness pulls him toward her instinctively, not always physically, but emotionally, spiritually, intuitively. He begins to wonder why he still thinks of her, why certain memories refuse to fade, why her name rises in his spirit like a soft echo. A man may ignore logic, but he cannot ignore instinct. Instinct whispers what logic tries to silence. And there is something powerful about a woman whose energy keeps returning to him. Her presence does not beg, it does not chase, it simply exists, it simply flows, it simply lingers in the air around him, like a scent he cannot forget. This presence makes him pause, it makes him reflect, it makes him confront corners of himself he would rather leave in the dark. And just when he believes he can shake off the feeling that he can walk forward untouched, a deeper shift begins within him. Because presence becomes pressure. When the heart starts to notice what the mind ignored. 5. When he feels her absence before he notices her distance. There is a strange truth about human beings. We often feel the absence of something before we understand that it is missing. A man rarely realizes a woman is pulling away. He realizes something is missing long before he knows it is her. Her laughter disappears from the rhythm of his day. Her softness fades from the background of his mind. Her energy no longer wraps around him during the quiet hours of the night. But he does not immediately think she is distancing herself. No, he thinks, why does everything feel different? Why do I feel less supported? Why does something feel wrong? Because absence is felt before distance becomes visible. When a woman is thinking about a man constantly, her presence fills the spaces he doesn't even know he had. It warms him, it comforts him, it holds him without ever touching him. But when she begins to shift her energy, when her thoughts grow tired, when her heart becomes heavy, when she chooses silence over emotional overthinking, her absence arrives quietly, like a breeze that suddenly stops. He may not see the change, but he feels it. A man who once felt thought of suddenly feels overlooked. A man who once felt valued suddenly feels forgotten. A man who once felt held by the energy of a woman's devotion now feels the coldness of her withdrawal. This is how he wakes up to the truth he never noticed before. Her presence was influencing him even when he thought he was unaffected. When she begins to let go, even silently, her absence becomes a vacuum, and the vacuum pulls him into self-reflection. He starts wondering why her silence bothers him, why her distance feels personal, why his spirit suddenly feels less stable, less content, less sure. He may not admit it aloud, but internally, he begins to question himself. Did I take her for granted? Was she more important to me than I realized? Why do I suddenly want her attention again? Her absence reveals a truth, that her presence was too gentle to show. And this truth begins to wake something inside him he didn't know was sleeping. But this awakening comes with its own emotional consequences, because absence teaches what presence never had the chance to say. 6. The unspoken pressure her attention places on his spirit. There is a weight that cannot be seen, but can always be felt. It is the weight of expectation, the weight of emotional responsibility, the weight of silent devotion. And when a woman thinks deeply about a man, even if she never says a word, he feels this weight settling on his spirit, not because she is demanding anything, not because she is forcing him to respond, not because she is intentionally placing pressure on him, but because attention itself creates a kind of spiritual responsibility. When someone invests in you, you feel the pull. When someone believes in you, you feel the heat. When someone loves you quietly, you feel the responsibility, even if you pretend not to. A man may act distant. He may act unbothered. He may act as though nothing touches him. But deep inside, his spirit knows when someone is holding space for him and when he is not returning the same energy. This creates an unspoken pressure, a pressure he cannot articulate but cannot ignore. He begins to feel like he owes her something, even if she never asked for anything. He begins to feel like he should be better, even if she never criticized him. He begins to feel like she deserves more, even if she never said a word. Because when someone pours into you silently, your spirit begins to sense when you are not pouring back, and that awareness presses on him. Sometimes he responds with growth. He steps up. He becomes more present, more honest, more attentive, more aware. But other times, that pressure scares him. He is afraid he cannot live up to what she sees in him. He's afraid he cannot carry the weight of her emotion. He is afraid he cannot become the man her heart is calling forward. And what do people do when they fear they are not enough? They run, they hide, they pull back to escape the feeling of being seen too deeply. But even when he tries to escape it, the pressure remains, because the pressure is not coming from her requests. It is coming from her attention. Attention is a mirror, and a man must face himself. When he stands in it, her attention shows him the parts of himself that are unfinished, the parts that are insecure, the parts that fear commitment, the parts that crave love but don't know how to hold it. This is why some men act strangely around women who care too deeply. Their spirit is reacting to the weight of being emotionally seen. But that pressure is only the beginning. Because once a man begins to feel the responsibility of her quiet devotion, he cannot unfeel it. Something begins to unravel inside him, slowly, quietly, inevitably, because the heart cannot escape the weight of what it knows it should have carried. 7. Why men sense devotion long before they understand it. It is one of the quiet mysteries of life that a man can sense devotion before he ever recognizes it as devotion. A woman may think that her feelings are hidden, that her silence protects her heart, that the world cannot see how deeply she cares. But the truth is, emotion carries its own light, and light always finds a way to shine through. Men do not always understand love. In the beginning, many have not learned the language of emotion. Many have not learned how to identify affection without physical expression. But even the most unread man can sense when someone's spirit is leaning toward him. He feels it in the way her eyes soften when she speaks to him. He feels it in the way her presence relaxes him without him knowing why. He feels it in the way she pauses before she responds, as if she is listening, not just to his words, but to the spaces between them. A woman's devotion is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not demand recognition. It simply sits beside him, like a quiet warmth that stays long after she leaves. And he senses it. Long before he understands her love, he feels the comfort of it. Long before. Or he recognizes her loyalty. He feels the safety of it. Long before he understands her longing. He feels the gentleness of it, wrapping around the edges of his life. This is why some men feel restless around a woman who loves them, not because the love is heavy, but because their spirit knows that something is being offered, that their mind is not yet ready to receive. Devotion carries a frequency. It is soft, but it is steady. It is present, but it is patient. It is invisible, but it is undeniable. Men sense it in the smallest gestures, in the tone of her voice, in the way she remembers details he forgot he mentioned, in the way she worries about things he pretends don't bother him. He may not fully understand what he is feeling. He may misinterpret it. He may even run from it. But he senses it. And sensing devotion creates a quiet stirring within him, a stirring that will grow louder when he starts to see what her devotion is calling him to become. Because devotion doesn't just comfort, it reveals responsibility. And that responsibility awakens something deeper in him. For devotion always calls a man toward the part of himself he has not yet risen into. 8. Her thoughts as an invitation to emotional responsibility. A woman's thoughts are not just emotional reactions. They are invitations. Invitations into awareness, accountability, reflection, and growth. When a woman thinks deeply about a man, she is not simply imagining moments. She is holding space for him, space for his potential, space for his softness, space for the man he could be if he had the courage to step into his own heart. A man feels this, even when no words are spoken. He feels the silent expectations. He feels the emotional maturity that surrounds her presence. He feels the spiritual weight of being seen, not just for who he is, but for who he could become. This is where responsibility, quietly enters the room. Because when someone sees you clearly, you can no longer hide behind the version of yourself you pretend to be. Her thoughts pull him out of emotional laziness. Her attention reveals the emotional gaps he has ignored. Her care exposes the ways he has avoided intimacy. And this kind of exposure creates responsibility, not the kind that feels forced, but the kind that calls him higher, the kind that asks, are you willing to meet the level of the love being offered to you? Are you willing to match the depth of the woman who sees you? Are you willing to rise into the man your soul knows you can be? Her thoughts become mirrors. mirrors he cannot escape, mirrors he did not ask for but needed. Because every man who is cared for deeply must choose between two paths, grow into it or run from it. Some men grow, they take responsibility. They become emotionally present. They learn to communicate. They learn to honor the love that is honoring them. But others run, not because they do not feel the love, but because they feel it too much. They fear the responsibility that comes with being loved by someone sacred, someone loyal, someone tender, someone wise. A man knows that a woman's depth is not something to play with, and that awareness creates pressure. The pressure to do better, the pressure to be honest, the pressure to not waste her devotion, the pressure to not break something he knows he may never find again. This pressure is not created by her demands, it is created by her purity. A woman who thinks deeply carries a love that cannot be handled casually, and this responsibility makes him question himself. Can I handle this kind of love? Am I ready for this kind of heart? Do I deserve someone who sees me so fully? These questions move him into reflection, and that reflection moves him into awakening. Because once a man feels responsible for the heart of a woman who cares for him deeply, he begins to see himself through her eyes, and that vision changes everything. Yet something even more powerful is waiting just beyond this awareness. For when responsibility awakens, clarity soon follows. 9. The moment he realizes she sees him clearly, awareness comes to a man like a slow sunrise. First, a faint glow, then a quiet warmth, then the undeniable light that reveals everything that was hidden in the dark. There is always a moment, a quiet, unplanned moment, when a man realizes that a woman sees him clearly, not the mask, not the charm, not the version he shows the world, but the truth. She sees the fear behind his silence. She sees the longing behind his distance. She sees the softness behind his pride. She sees the wounds behind his anger. She sees the hesitation behind his excuses. And this realization disarms him, because being seen is one of the most intimate experiences a human being can have. It strips away pretense. It undresses the soul. It exposes the truth that has been living inside him, quietly, patiently, secretly. When a man realizes that a woman sees him fully, without him saying a word, it does something to him, something profound, something unsettling, something transformative. He begins to understand why he felt drawn to her, why her presence affected him, why her absence disturbed him, why her devotion touched parts of him he didn't know were waiting to be touched. He realizes she was not imagining him, she was perceiving him. She was reading the silent language of his soul. She was listening to the parts of him he never had the courage to speak aloud. And that level of clarity changes the dynamic completely. Because once a man knows that a woman sees him clearly, he can no longer hide from himself. Her clarity becomes his confrontation. Her understanding becomes his awakening. Her perception becomes his mirror. This is where the shift happens. This is where the truth rises. This is where the heart begins to answer questions the mind has avoided. And as he stands in the truth of her perception, he begins to see what she has known all along, that being seen is not the danger. Being seen and doing nothing about it is. 10. When a woman thinks of him, her energy speaks louder than her silence. Sometimes a woman doesn't realize how loud her silence truly is. She thinks she is just living her life, breathing, moving, working, doing the ordinary things. Yet deep inside her, there is a soft echo that keeps whispering the same name over and over again. And the universe has a strange way of carrying that whisper, delivering it straight into the bones of the man she cannot stop thinking about. Thoughts are not just thoughts, they are waves, vibrations, currents that travel farther than we can imagine. And when a woman feels deeply for a man, those currents intensify. Her heart becomes a transmitter, and her silence becomes the language he can hear without understanding how. Have you ever noticed how, out of nowhere, a man suddenly remembers a woman he hasn't spoken to in weeks? Or he wakes up thinking about her for no reason? Or he finds himself replaying her laugh, her eyes, her softness, even when she's miles away? It's because she has been thinking of him, not obsessively, not desperately, but naturally, emotionally, soulfully, and her energy travels faster than her words ever could. A woman's heart has a frequency, and when she connects to a man at a deep emotional level, that frequency becomes familiar to him, almost like a scent his spirit recognizes, a melody he didn't know he memorized. He doesn't know why he feels her, he just does. He feels her when he's driving, he feels her when he's quiet, he feels her when he is about to sleep. He feels her even when he's trying hard not to feel anything at all. Because her energy carries a message he cannot block. A woman's emotional intensity is not a weakness. It is a signal, a wave, a calling. And the moment he begins to feel that calling, the moment he starts sensing her presence in the spaces she no longer occupies, something inside him wakes up. He becomes aware, alert, curious. He tries to shake it off. He tells himself it's nothing. But silence, real silence, the kind a woman holds when she is thinking deeply, that silence echoes inside him, louder than any words she could have spoken. It's almost ironic. The more she stays quiet about her feelings, the more he feels them. It's almost poetic. The more she hides her heart, the more his heart receives the vibration of hers. Because a woman's emotional energy does not stay inside her. It travels, it reaches, it touches, it announces her presence without exposing her vulnerability. Even if she never calls, even if she never writes, even if she tries to distract herself, her energy still speaks. It says, "I'm thinking of you. I haven't let go. My heart is still connected." And he hears it, not with his ears, but with the part of his soul that once felt safe with her. The part he didn't know he'd miss. Because even when she doesn't speak to him, something in him whispers, "Why can't I stop feeling her?" And this question becomes the seed of internal discomfort, the beginning of a shift, the start of a realization he wasn't ready for. And this is where the second keynote begins to unfold. Because when her energy reaches him, something else begins to rise inside him, something he cannot deny, no matter how hard he tries. 11. His spirit becomes unsettled when she pulls her energy back. The strange thing about a man is this: he does not always feel her presence when she is near, but he always feels her absence when she pulls away. A woman can give him her time, her heart, her softness, her dedication, and he may take it lightly, not because he is ungrateful, but because he is human. Humans often notice the value of something only when it stops being available. So when a woman who deeply felt for a man suddenly withdraws her emotional energy, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with quiet acceptance, he feels the shift instantly. Her energy is no longer holding space for him. Her thoughts are no longer wrapped around him. Her heart is no longer sending waves toward him. And his spirit becomes unsettled. At first, he won't understand what's happening. He'll just feel the discomfort, the strange emptiness, the unexpected quietness in his life, because her emotional presence was something he had become used to, even if he never acknowledged it. A woman's devotion creates an invisible cushion around a man, a sense of warmth, emotional anchoring, and reassurance. He may not thank her for it, he may not see it clearly, but he feels it, and when it disappears, his world loses color. Even if the sun is still shining, he begins to wonder, why do I feel off? Why do I feel lonely even when I'm surrounded by people? Why do I suddenly miss the woman I told myself I could live without? Because her absence is not just quiet. It is a mirror, a mirror that reflects the truth he ran from. Her absence reveals the emptiness he had been covering with distractions. The emptiness her presence once filled. His spirit becomes restless. He starts replaying memories he once ignored. He starts romanticizing moments he treated as ordinary. He starts craving her softness, the very softness he once took for granted. This restlessness is not punishment, it is awakening. The soul always knows when it has lost a connection that mattered. And that quiet unrest inside him is actually a sign that he is beginning to feel the depth of what she carried for him. He tries to focus on other things. He tries to convince himself that he is fine. He tries to bury the discomfort, but discomfort has a way of resurfacing. It rises in the silence of the night. It rises when he sees another woman who cannot compare to her depth. It rises when he realizes how rare her love truly was. His spirit becomes unsettled because something in him finally understands. She was not common. She was not replaceable. She was not temporary. She was a blessing he misread as a convenience. And now, the absence of her energy becomes his teacher. It teaches him what presence really means, what love really feels like, and what he truly lost when she stopped thinking of him. And as this realization deepens inside him, something even more powerful begins to happen. Something that changes not only his emotions, but his entire inner world. 12. He begins to feel the weight of his own actions. There comes a moment, a quiet, internal, undeniable moment, when a man finally confronts himself, not the version of himself he shows the world, not the version he hides behind pride, but the real version, the one who knows exactly what he did and what he failed to do. In this moment arrives Prek. Icily, when her energy is no longer reaching him. It's in this moment that he begins to feel the weight of his own actions, the weight of his silence when she needed clarity, the weight of his distance when she needed closeness, the weight of his hesitation when she was offering certainty, the weight of his inconsistency when she was giving him her purest sincerity. For a long time, he avoided this truth, not because he was heartless, but because he was unprepared to face the consequences of taking her for granted, unprepared to lose the woman who loved him without holding back, unprepared to wake up in a life where her heart no longer revolved around him. But now the weight settles in. It drips slowly, like water filling a glass drop by drop, until suddenly the glass is overflowing. And the truth he avoided becomes the truth he cannot escape. He realizes she wasn't just thinking of him. She was caring for him in a way no one else ever did. She wasn't just loving him. She was choosing him again and again, even when she had every reason to walk away. He begins to understand that her devotion was not weakness, but wisdom, courage, and heart. He remembers the softness in her voice. He remembers how patient she was, how present she was, how forgiving she was, how deeply she believed in who he could become. And he begins to feel regret, not because he lost control, but because he lost connection. Regret is a heavy teacher, a silent teacher, a painful teacher. It shows a man the difference between what he wanted in the moment and what he truly needed in the long run. It shows him that while he was chasing temporary distractions, he ignored the woman who would have stood with him in every storm. It shows him that while he was guarding his freedom, she was offering him peace. It shows him that while he was uncertain, she was loyal. And now, the weight becomes too real to ignore. He sees himself clearly, perhaps for the first time. He sees how his lack of effort made her question her worth. He sees how his mixed signals made her feel invisible. He sees how his emotional distance taught her to detach. He sees how his silence forced her to build a life where he no longer fits. And this is the moment, the deep, unforgettable moment, when he finally understands. She didn't walk away because she stopped loving him. She walked away because she started loving herself. He feels the weight of that truth. He feels the heaviness of what he caused. He feels the loss not in his mind, but in his spirit. And here's the irony. The same woman he once assumed would always be there is now the woman he cannot stop thinking about. The same love he once felt so confident receiving is now the love he realizes he should have treasured. And the same presence he once looked at casually is now the absence he feels painfully. This is the turning point. The moment where a man either grows or spends the rest of his life regretting the depth he mishandled. Because the weight of his actions isn't meant to destroy him. It is meant to awaken him to love, awaken him to maturity, awaken him to accountability, awaken him to himself. And this awakening, whether painful or powerful, is the silent transformation he never saw coming. 13. He starts to long for the emotional safety she once created. There comes a time in every man's life when he looks back and realizes something he never fully saw when it was right in front of him. Not her beauty, not her smile, not even her kindness. Though all these things remain unforgettable, what he longs for the most is the emotional safety she once created around him. A safety he didn't know he needed until he felt its absence. A safety he didn't recognize as rare until he found himself try and to breathe without it. Because a woman who loves deeply doesn't just give affection. She creates atmosphere. She builds a world where he can rest. A world where he can be imperfect without fear. A world where he can speak without being judged. A world where he doesn't have to pretend to be stronger than he really is. And when she is gone, that world collapses in silence. He begins to remember the small things. The way she listened without interrupting. The way she understood what he meant even when he spoke clumsily. The way she reached for his hand at the exact moment he needed grounding. The way she sensed his emotional storms before he admitted anything was wrong. There was a softness she carried. Not weakness, not submission, but a wisdom that comes from a heart trained in compassion. He didn't realize then that her softness was healing him. He didn't realize that her voice was calming something inside him he had ignored for years. He didn't realize that her presence was teaching him how to open, how to trust, how to breathe. He only realizes now, when everything she once offered freely has turned into a space he can no longer enter. There is a strange kind of silence that fills a man when he loses the emotional safety of a woman who genuinely cared. It is not loneliness, it is not regret alone. It is the sudden understanding that he once had a home in someone's soul, and he walked away from it without knowing he'd never find another quite like it. Because emotional safety is not built in a day. It comes from consistency, from gentle effort, from shared vulnerability, from two hearts that learn to trust the rhythm between them. She gave him this without asking for much in return. All she wanted was honesty, presence, a little effort, a little willingness. And now he feels the weight of those moments he brushed aside. He feels the heaviness of her absence in the places she once made peaceful. He feels how loud his own thoughts are without her grounding energy smoothing the edges. He notices how quickly he gets irritated now, how easily he feels overwhelmed, how he no longer has the emotional cushion she used to create with her tenderness. He misses the way she spoke to his heart, the way she encouraged him without pushing, the way she saw his potential even when he doubted himself. Her emotional safety wasn't just comfort, it was transformation. And the truth is, he longs for it now because he finally understands what it meant. He realizes she was the only person who truly saw him, not the surface version, not the mask he wore, but the deep hidden vulnerable parts of him. She saw it all and still stayed. That kind of safety does not come twice. It does not wait forever. It does not rebuild itself after being abandoned. Now he is left with the echoes of her presence, memories that comfort him and hurt him at the same time. Memories he wishes he could return to. Memories that remind him of what he lost because he wasn't ready to be held so deeply. He tries to distract himself. He tries to focus on other women. He tries to act unbothered. But emotional safety cannot be replaced by attention. It cannot be substituted with attraction. It cannot be recreated with someone who does not carry the same depth. And the more he realizes this, the stronger the longing becomes, because somewhere inside him, a small voice whispers, "You left the one place where your soul could rest." And that truth begins to reshape him from the inside out. Just when he thinks he has finally accepted the loss, another realization begins to rise, a heavier, deeper one, the one that leads into the next keynote. Because longing is only the beginning. The real transformation happens when he understands why that safety felt so rare, and why he should have protected it instead of testing it. 14. He tries to replace her and fails every time. There is a moment in every healing journey, especially a man's, where he starts to convince himself that maybe he can move on quickly, maybe he can replace the connection he lost, maybe someone new will give him the same warmth, the same softness, the same emotional refuge he took for granted. So he tries, he meets new faces, he entertains new conversations, he flirts, he laughs. He pretends the empty space she left inside him is nothing more than temporary sadness. But the deeper truth always arrives quietly. It sneaks into his awareness like a shadow, a realization he cannot outrun. Every woman he meets only reminds him of the one he lost, not because they are less beautiful, not because they are less kind, but because they do not carry her emotional depth, that intuitive knowing, that spiritual connection that felt like home, a home he walked away from without understanding. The door would close behind him. He tries to replace her, but something inside him rejects the possibility. He compares without meaning to. He judges without wanting to. He searches for fragments of her in women who were never meant to carry her essence. And he fails every time. He fails because he's not looking for a new woman. He is looking for the feelings she gave him. Feelings that were created from the intimacy of their history. Feelings that cannot be replicated by a stranger. Feelings that were born from the softness of her soul, meeting the closed doors of his heart. The truth he runs from becomes the truth he must eventually face. He doesn't miss her body, he misses her spirit. He doesn't miss her attention, he misses her intention. He doesn't miss the conversations. He misses being understood without explanation. He doesn't miss the drama, he misses the pee she brought into his chaos. He doesn't miss the idea of her, he misses the reality of who she was. He realizes that connection is not something you can shop for or stumble into. Connection is created, connection is built, connection is nurtured. And he had that with her. He realizes that trust is not something you can demand. Trust is earned, trust is grown, trust is protected. And he lost that with her. And the more he tries to replace her, the more he understands how deeply she impacted him. He remembers the sound of her laughter, not the loud laugh, but the soft laugh she only shared when she felt safe. He remembers how her eyes softened when she looked at him. He remembers how she believed in him with a sincerity he rarely sees in the world. The more he searches for someone new, the more he realizes he was never searching for a new person. He was searching for the emotional container she created around him. And that container was shaped by her soul. He fails every time, because he is trying to duplicate something that was never meant to be a copy. He fails every time, because he is trying to find depth in shallow waters. He fails every time, because his heart is now aware of a truth his mind refused to acknowledge. What she gave me was rare. He begins to confront the uncomfortable truth that maybe he wasn't the one who couldn't love her properly. Maybe he wasn't the one who wasn't ready. Maybe he wasn't the one who was afraid. Maybe he was simply unaware of his own emotional poverty until she left him with the silence that revealed it. He now sees that she didn't ask too much. She simply asked for what he didn't yet know how to give. And this realization begins to shift him at the deepest level. He stops blaming her. He stops blaming himself. He stops blaming the timing. He stops blaming the circumstances. He starts to accept the truth. He lost her because he didn't know how to hold what was sacred. And now, as he tries to rebuild himself, he discovers something unexpected rising inside him. A quiet determination, a new awareness, a deep transformation brewing underneath his regret, The same longing that once broke him is now shaping him. The same emptiness that once haunted him is now pushing him toward becoming the man he should have been, when she still believed in him, and that is where the journey begins again. 15. The shift, when she withdraws her attention. There is a moment in every man's life when the world around him feels the same, but something inside him feels noticeably different. A subtle quietness settles into the spaces where certainty once lived. A new atmosphere forms, one he can't immediately name, yet he feels it like a cold breeze passing through a door he didn't realize was open. This is the moment a woman withdraws her attention. Not in anger, not in revenge, not even in disappointment anymore. She withdraws because her soul finally whispers, "You have given enough." It happens quietly. There is no dramatic exit, no loud confrontation, no emotional chaos, just a gentle shifting inward, as though her heart gathers its pieces one by one and begins to place them back where they always belonged, within herself. This shift is not visible to the eye, but a man feels it. He feels it even before he understands it. He feels it in her silence, in her shorter replies, in the way her laughter no longer opens as widely, in the absence of her checking in the soft withdrawal of her warmth. It is not that she stops caring immediately. It's that she finally stops giving. Her energy begins to return to her, like water finding its riverbed, slowly at first barely noticeable. But then all at once, the flow becomes steady, unapologetic cleansing. A woman's attention is not ordinary. It is emotional nourishment. It is spiritual shelter. It is the gentle light that teaches a man how to grow. And when she pulls that light back, the room he once lived in becomes dimmer. He begins to feel the emptiness where her presence used to rest. The comfort that once came effortlessly from her attention now feels like a quiet ache behind his ribs. He notices she no longer asks if he has eaten. She no longer checks if he arrived home safely. She no longer reads his silence to understand his mood. Those things weren't obligations to her. They were expressions of love. But love has boundaries too, and she finally found hers. Her withdrawal does not come from bitterness. It comes from awakening, from realizing she cannot pour endlessly into someone who doesn't recognize the depth of what she gave. And so she steps back, not angrily, not dramatically, but gracefully. She steps back to breathe. She steps back to find clarity. She steps back to heal her own exhaustion. She steps back to remember who she was before her heart stretched itself thin. And the more she steps back, the more he begins to step forward, not because he suddenly became the man she needed all along, but because her absence has begun to reveal the truth her presence once protected him from. Her presence used to cushion his insecurities. Her attention used to soothe the fears he never spoke aloud. Her reassurance used to quiet the doubts he didn't admit he carried. Now, all of that returns to him, unfiltered, unsoftened, undiluted. The emotions she once helped him regulate begin to rise without warning. The loneliness she once shielded him from begins to whisper louder. The confusion she once made sense of begins to spiral in his chest. This is the shift many men don't expect. The moment they realize her attention was not just affection, it was emotional architecture. It was structure. It was balance. And without it, he feels himself standing in a house with walls that suddenly feel thin, a roof that suddenly leaks, a foundation that suddenly trembles. He used to think her love was soft. Now he learns it was strong. He used to think her care was simple. Now he learns it was stabilizing. He used to think her presence was ordinary. Now he learns it was rare. When she withdraws, he feels the shift like a slow unraveling of a thread he didn't realize was holding his emotional sweater together. And deep inside him, a quiet realization begins to form, a truth he cannot deny, even if he tries. She was the center of a peace I never thanked her for. This truth does not break him, but it cracks him open just enough to let understanding in. Because as the shift continues, He begins to face something he hasn't yet admitted to himself. Her absence is starting to change him. And that leads into the next transformation. Because the real shift happens not when she withdraws, but when her withdrawal finally reaches the parts of him he never let her. See 16. How his life changes when her thoughts no longer reach him. There is a strange and powerful moment in a man's journey when he realizes that the woman who once held him in her heart no longer thinks about him the way she used to. Her thoughts used to reach him like gentle rays of sunlight, warming him even when she was physically far. Her care used to wrap around him like a silent blessing, softening his days without him ever asking. Her love used to surround him like a quiet spiritual protection, something he felt even when he didn't fully understand it. But now, that inner connection he once took for granted is gone. Not paused, not weakened, not hidden beneath disappointment. Gone. Her thoughts no longer search for him when she wakes up. Her heart no longer whispers his name when she's trying to rest. Her energy no longer stretches itself across the distance to check on him. Her prayers no longer carry his well-being at their center. Her mind has begun to migrate back to herself, toward her healing, toward her growth, toward her rebirth. And the moment her thoughts stop reaching him, his life begins to change in subtle but powerful ways. He doesn't understand it at first. He simply feels a type of emptiness he cannot describe, a heaviness he cannot shake off, a discomfort he cannot explain. It is as if something that used to hold him gently has suddenly let go. He starts to notice that the peace he once felt effortlessly now requires effort. The stability he once carried without thinking now feels fragile. The confidence he once wore like armor now feels thin. Because her emotional presence was never just affection, it was spiritual reinforcement. She once thought of him when he didn't think of himself. She once hoped for him when he doubted his own path. She once encouraged him quietly in her heart, even when he didn't hear the words aloud. Her thoughts were blessings. Her energy was alignment. Her love was guidance. And now, without realizing it, he begins to crave the invisible support he no longer receives. He wonders why he feels restless, why he feels easily agitated, why he feels disconnected from things that once gave him joy, why nothing feels as meaningful, why everything seems slightly harder. He doesn't yet understand that her emotional energy used to stabilize him in ways he never saw. He begins to feel her absence in strange moments, in the quiet before sleep, in the pause after a long day, in conversations where he can't feel the depth he once felt. He begins to feel the spiritual distance, in the way life no longer flows as smoothly. Because life always shifts when someone who once thought of you with love no longer does. He notices that conversations with other women lack warmth, not because they are unkind, but because they don't carry her depth, her understanding, her spiritual connection to him. He notices that achievements feel less fulfilling, not because they don't matter, but because there is no longer a heart celebrating him. In silence, he notices that his own path feels unclear, not because he is lost, but because her energy used to illuminate his direction without him even realizing it. A woman's thoughts are powerful. When she loves a man, her thoughts become a form of protection around him. They soften what tries to break him. They calm what tries to overwhelm him. They bring clarity to his confusion, peace to his mind, and strength to his spirit. He never knew how much of himself was strengthened by the invisible love flowing toward him from her heart. Now he begins to understand. He begins to realize that her thoughts were not idle. They were a force, a shield, a silent prayer. And when those thoughts stop reaching him, the absence is not just emotional, it is SPI, ritual. His life feels heavier, his days feel colder, his decisions feel lonelier. He begins to understand the truth many men learn too late. When a woman withdraws her thoughts, she withdraws her protection, and he feels it. deeply, not as punishment, not as revenge, but as a mirror showing him all the things he took lightly, all the things he assumed were normal, all the things he believed he could replace. Now he realizes they were sacred. Slowly, clarity begins to rise inside him like dawn breaking after a long night. Soft, painful, undeniable. He realizes she didn't leave him emotionally because she stopped caring. She left because she finally cared about herself. He realizes she didn't withdraw because he wasn't enough. She withdrew because she gave too much. And now, with her energy no longer woven into his life, he begins to feel the full weight of standing alone emotionally. Something she once protected him from without ever being asked. And somewhere deep within him, a quiet truth begins to echo. Her leaving didn't break me. Her leaving revealed me. It revealed where he was spiritually weak. It revealed where he avoided growth. It revealed where he relied on her instead of evolving himself. It revealed the areas he must now strengthen. If he ever wants to love a woman like her again, or love himself fully for the first time. And as this understanding settles inside him, another realization emerges, one that changes him in ways he never expected. Her withdrawal didn't just create emptiness, it planted transformation. A transformation that will either awaken him or humble him. A transformation that will shape the next chapters of his life, with or without her. 17. Eliminate the noise you allow into your inner peace. There comes a moment in a woman's life when she realizes that peace is not something the world hands to her. It is something she builds, brick by brick, boundary by boundary, breath by breath. And in that moment, she starts asking a quiet but life-changing question. What noise have I allowed into my sacred space? Not the noise of traffic or crowded rooms, but the noise of doubts, the noise of expectations, the noise of opinions that were never spoken from love. Sometimes the loudest noise you hear doesn't come from the world around you, but from the story you've been conditioned to believe about yourself. The story that says you must respond quickly. The story that says you must prove your worth. The story that says your value is connected to someone else's recognition. And that story grows louder every time you silence your intuition to make room for someone else's comfort. There is a kind of noise that doesn't shout, it drains. It's the quiet criticism hidden behind, "I'm just being honest." It's the subtle dismissal behind, "You're overthinking it." It's the emotional static of someone who talks to you, not to understand you, but to shape you into what they need. This type of noise slips into your peace like dust through a cracked door. And before you realize it, your inner sanctuary feels crowded with voices that do not belong to you. But here is the truth. Inner peace is a gate that only you hold the key to. And when you finally decide to close that gate, you will feel something shift inside you. You will feel your spirit rise like the sun after a storm, warm and unbothered. You will feel your mind stretch into a new clarity. The way a tree reaches for light, you will feel the weight you've been carrying, not yours, never yours, fall to the ground with a soft freeing thud. Eliminating the noise is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming clear. It is not about pushing people away. It is about protecting what keeps you alive. It is not about isolation. It is about restoration. And sometimes the greatest restoration comes from silence, not the silence of absence, but the silence of alignment. The silence where every breath feels like a prayer. The silence where your thoughts no longer fight each other. The silence where your heart beats without fear of being misunderstood. In that silence, you begin hearing yourself again. Your real self, your honest self, your grounded self. And hearing yourself is the first step toward returning to yourself. But the return is only the beginning, because what happens next requires an even deeper courage. The courage to release an identity you've outgrown. And when you take that brave step inward, something powerful begins to unfold. 18. Eliminate identities built from old wounds. There are identities we choose and identities we inherit. There are ways we describe ourselves that were never born from truth, only from survival. Ways of being shaped not by who we are, but by what we went through. And for many women, the identity they carry is stitched together from old wounds that nobody apologized for. Pain that was never acknowledged. Scars that healed, but healed out of shape. So you learn to say, "I'm just strong," when what you mean is, "I was not protected." You learn to say, "I don't need anyone," when what you mean is, "People have failed me more times than I can count." You learn to say, "I'm fine," when what you mean is, "I forgot how it feels to be handled with care." Old wounds can create identities that look confident on the outside, but feel heavy on the inside. Identities that say you must always be in control, always be calm, always be forgiving, always be the bigger person. And yet, none of these patterns reflect your true nature. They reflect the version of you that learned to survive. But survival is not the same as wholeness, and endurance is not the same as identity. Your wounds may tell part of your story, but they do not deserve to write the entire script. There comes a moment when you feel a quiet cracking inside your spirit, the moment when the identity that once protected you begins to limit you, when the armor that kept you safe becomes the cage that keeps you small. And that moment is sacred, because it is the beginning of a rebirth. Letting go of an identity shaped by pain is like taking off a heavy coat you forgot you were wearing. You don't realize how weighed down you were until you finally feel light again. You don't realize how tense your shoulders were until they drop naturally. You don't realize how much energy you spent being strong until you are finally allowed to be soft. And softness is not weakness. Softness is the courage to feel again. Softness is the readiness to trust yourself again. Softness is the return to your real, unarmored self. Healing requires honesty, not the loud kind, but the gentle kind. The honesty that whispers, "I became this way to survive, but I no longer need this version of myself." The honesty that allows you to grieve who you were while celebrating who you are becoming. The honesty that lets you uproot what was planted in pain so you can grow from a place of truth. And as you release these old identities, you make space for something far greater, the identity that comes from wisdom, self-respect, and inner peace. The identity that is not shaped by wounds, but by awakening. The identity that is not built from what hurt you, but from what healed you. Because once a woman knows herself beyond her pain, she becomes unstoppable. And yet, even this transformation is not the final stage. Because when you shed old identities, you also shed old futures. Futures that no longer align with who you truly are. And that leads you toward the next unfolding truth, waiting just beyond the horizon. And so, when a woman cannot stop thinking about a man, something begins to unfold in him as well. Not through magic, not through intention, but through the quiet law that binds all human hearts. What you hold also begins to hold you. What you release is forced to see its own reflection. But remember this, your value is not proven by how deeply you feel someone, but by how gracefully you rise once you realize that your heart was never meant to be spent on someone who does not rise with you. Walk gently, but carry your soul like a crown. For when you finally return to yourself, the whole world feels the shift. And so will he.